Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Dot Connector after our week break, a week in which nothing seems to have got better. If anything, the world seems more on a knife edge. Dad, how are you doing?
Well as can be expected, I think, is probably the reply, because it was clear that Keir Starmer became the new Prime Minister of Britain with a minority of the vote, the great majority of the British people not voting for him, because he is a cult-owned asset who is being put in there to play out the cult agenda, manifesting in one form through the World Economic Forum. And the speed at which he has begun is quite extraordinary. They talk about political honeymoons and when people get elected. I don't think this one's going to last very long. It's already starting to fall apart in the minds of a lot of people. And I think it's appropriate that we start with an image made by the artist Neil Haig this week, which is an updated version of ones that have appeared in my books over the years. And basically what he's portraying here is how you have this global cult, this global network of secret societies. And then you have all the different political parties and political ideologies, from fascist to communist and all the different political parties in the range. But actually, in the end, they all answer to the cult.
Yep.
Now, that doesn't mean that every political party leader is in on it. There's two levels of it. There's one where people get in, somehow bizarrely, given the system's all against them, that want to do something, genuinely good. And what they are faced with is the system turning on them to make everything they want to do virtually impossible.
You could argue that happened to Liz Truss.
Well, whatever people think of Liz Truss, who was voted by the Conservative membership as leader of the Conservative Party, thus at the time, because of the downfall of Boris Johnson, she became, by default, the Prime Minister of Britain. Now, Rishi Sunak was in the race as well.
Yep.
And Rishi Sunak was the cult's man. So the Conservative membership gave the cult the wrong result. So what happened is the banking system and the financial system in general and the City of London started creating financial mayhem. And Liz Truss became the shortest reigning Prime Minister in British history. And, what shall we do now? Because we got us, Rishi Sunak. So he came in. And Rishi Sunak was just a temporary Prime Minister until the guy that they really wanted all along, the vacuous gopher, Keir Starmer, was able to come to illusory power. And so you had this situation where Rishi Sunak's kind of left-fielded his entire party, apart from the few that were in on it, when he announced a July the 4th general election, which was basically harry-carry, given the polls at the time, because he wanted to lose. That was his job, to lose, and he's just out of it now. And in comes the guy Keir Starmer. Now, Starmer is the other version of cult-owned. You've got those, like I say, who would try to do something genuine, who are not really in on it, but the cult-owned system turns on them to make sure they can't do it. Then you have the other expression personified by Keir Starmer and Tony Blair and such like, who absolutely know that they're being put in there to do a job. So we have this guy, Keir Starmer, who is completely owned by the cult, he's been a member of the Trilateral Commission, et cetera, which is a big cult operation. And what a start he's made. We're going to go into some of the other elements later, but let's start with this one, which is rather pressing and relevant.
Alarming.
In relation to a possible Third World War. He's gone to, and this is the interesting thing too, the July the 4th election meant that Rishi Sunak was going to be replaced by Starmer just before this NATO summit, this 75 years so-called celebration in America. And another interesting thing is just before that happened, you had the missile hitting a Ukraine children's hospital. Yeah. Now, Ukraine and the West, of course, say it was Russian, and others say it was actually self-inflicted. The point being that to happen just before a summit, which was designed to demonize Russia, should send big alarm bells. And the reaction of Starmer was classic cult-owned rhetoric. The immediate condemnation of a missile hitting a children's hospital in Ukraine, while the prevarication over months and months of the Israeli slaughter of tens of thousands of people in Gaza. So one is a cult reaction, and the other is a cult reaction, because it's like Russia bad, Israel good. This is basically the mentality of these cult-owned people. So he's gone to this NATO summit, and immediately he said, here's the headline: Keir Starmer gives go-ahead for British missiles to be used in strikes against targets inside Russia. Now, that's a declaration of war.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But that's the idea. The decision over the use of Storm Shadow missiles, which has been welcomed by Ukraine, I'm sure it has, by its unbelievably corrupt puppet leader, Zelensky. So he's told the Ukrainian president that British missiles can be used for defensive strikes against targets inside Russia. And the one thing that you don't hear is, look, all this devastation's happening. The people of Ukraine are suffering. So let's do everything we can to get people around a table to see how we can sort this out. That's never spoken about, only increasing the financial support and the weaponry support for Ukraine. That makes it very clear they don't want peace, they want war, which of course I've been warning was the plan for decades now. So what's happened, just to give you a real pointer to where this is going in terms of Starmer and the British government, immediately that the Defence Secretary, the new one, a guy called John Healey, was appointed. He's in a plane and off to Ukraine, and promising to give Zelensky everything he wants. Yeah. And here's a clip of him doing exactly that.
Thank you for your welcome. Thank you for the honour of including us in your celebrations of Navy Day in Odessa here. Thank you for your call to Keir Starmer on his first day in office. He was pleased to receive that. He was pleased to see you at the D-Day celebrations in Normandy. And we were pleased that is part of a series of successful diplomatic events for Ukraine. The EU accession talks, the G7, your own peace summit. And we want to work to make the NATO Summit next week a success for Ukraine as well as a success for NATO. And we may come back to that. But just if I may say two things.
Yeah, please.
We've made the commitment that the UK support for Ukraine will continue. We're looking to step up that support. So my decision to be here on the second day of my job reflects this as our first priority and first commitment to you, to Ukraine. You have the firmest friend to Ukraine in the United Kingdom, and our relationship is a special relationship. So it has been important for me to be able to say, yes, we can step up our support with some extra equipment that you are using and needing day to day. It's been important to say that I can and have directed the Defence Department to speed up the delivery of what we've already pledged.
Yeah, I watched that. It's embarrassing. It's absolutely embarrassing. They're sat there. The idea that Labour have been voted in and going to bring change, that's what their whole policy was. And like Obama, they never said actually what they were going to change. The only thing they're going to change is do everything quicker. But He's gone in and he's pledged everything. Yeah, a lot of the people that voted for Labour would have voted because they thought, the Tories were taking us towards a conflict and Labour will stop it, when they just accelerated it within like a day.
Well, if anyone voted Labour because they thought Starmer would stop the conflict in Ukraine, they have not been paying attention. No. This is all part of a long-term agenda where this cult is orchestrating its gophers in government to push the world in this direction. And we've also had, I don't know whether you remember this picture, of the US Secretary of Defense, a guy called Lloyd Austin. And it was during COVID, and he's looking at some troops in some foreign country, and he's got a big kind of, COVID shield over his face. Looks an absolute prat. And of course, he must be very brave, terrified of COVID, being defense secretary, just what you want. Anyway, he's back on the scene at the NATO Summit this week. And what he's been promising is that F-16 fighter jets are going to be delivered to Ukraine, and Ukraine is going to be flying them this summer. And again, upping the ante towards this global conflict that they want, described as World War III, which, in terms of East against West, is what it will be if this goes on as it is. So here's Lloyd Austin without his bloody mask. So, I mean, that's at least that's a benefit. Describing how we must support Ukraine at any cost.
As another sign of our deep commitment to Ukraine's self-defense, a coalition of countries has been working tirelessly to provide F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine. And today, President Biden, alongside the Dutch and Danish prime ministers, is proud to announce the transfer of F-16s is officially underway, and Ukraine will be flying F-16s this summer.
I don't remember anyone either side of the Atlantic being asked whether they agreed with this policy. They're just doing it.
Well, this is what happens, I saw a clip, it was on the Alex Jones show, I think, an interview with a guy called David Martin. He's been talking a lot about the fake vaccine. And he's saying that the World Economic Forum are running out of bullets and the, basically it's all falling apart for them. And I kind of shook my head as I watched because, this idea of we're winning, if we go down that road and turn it into any form of complacency, then we are in serious trouble. Yeah. I mean, we are anyway, but I mean, even more so. Because what's happening is you've got all this rhetoric in the alternative media about we're winning and this is happening and this is happening. But hold on, the agenda keeps unfolding and unfolding day after day after day because, as you say, they've reached the point where they think, well, we're not even going to pay lip service to bowing to any pressure. We're just going to do it. And this is what happens when you give your power away to politicians and think that they're going to change anything. The only thing they're going to change, as you rightly say, in terms of Starmer, is the speed at which it unfolds. And we've had another indication of where this is going. We're winning this week with Zelensky and Tusk signed Polish-Ukrainian security agreement in Warsaw. Zelensky and Tusk, Donald Tusk, the Prime Minister, have met in Warsaw, where the pair signed a security agreement between their two countries. And this includes Poland setting out plans for shooting down Russian missiles and drones over Ukraine that are heading towards Polish airspace, not in Polish airspace, heading towards it. And anyone that's followed Donald Tusk, staggeringly, now the Prime Minister of Poland, with his long career with the European Union, will know that this guy is another one that is cult to his to the quicks of his fingers. And so wherever you look this week, you've had this upping the ante more and more towards an open conflict with Russia, because let's not kid ourselves. The West is at war with Russia. Russia know that. The West knows that in terms of the people doing it. It's just a matter of whether it breaks out into a full-blown, we are at war conflict, because we are anyway. And what I've been talking about over the years is how the plan is to move the power dynamic from the West to the East. And this is what this is all about as well, this conflict. But there's this story I saw this week where the leader of China and Putin hailed tectonic shift in world order as they meet at summit and urge Russia and China's allies to support their anti-Western agenda. So China and Russia have praised a tectonic shift in global politics. This is what I've been warning about since the 1990s. And this is at a meeting of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. It's another one of these amalgamation alliances of Eastern countries, like,
BRICS.
Many in the BRICS alliance. And so we're seeing this happening. And another indicator this week was the Indian Prime Minister, Modi, who met with Putin and was given Russia's highest award. What the hell for? Services rendered, I suppose. And again, India is part of this whole Eastern alliance, which is planned to completely move the power out of the West into the East, and at the same time, the West is being dismantled, and Western leaders like Starmer, their job is to oversee the dismantling. So that's what's driving their decisions. It's not about benefiting the West. It's not change to benefit the West and countries that they oversee. It's change to destroy them. And this is what we're going to see. We'll get into this as we go along. This is what we're going to see with the Starmer government. And whether 60-odd million people the vast majority of which didn't vote for Starmer, are going to stand aside and let him do this? Well, we're going to see. And the answer to that question will decide the future of Britain and the wider world.
To segue slightly, where do you think Viktor Orban sits in all this? Because obviously he's got a role now, hasn't he, where he's a bit more prominent. And he's supposedly been on like this peace tour to China, to Russia, to Ukraine, now to America. Do you think, because obviously if you look at what he's done since he's been president of Hungary, what he's done would probably align more with what Russia and China are doing than what the West are doing. Do you think that's just to throw the spanner in the works, or do you think he's probably got a role of his own, he's just playing it?
Well, I think Viktor Orban sees a few things that other Western leaders don't see. He's made sure that there's not a massive influx of migrants from other cultures into Hungary. And he's done this despite the screams of abuse and threats from the European Union. So he is aware of many things. He's also probably the closest Western leader to Putin. So he is pushing back in that sense. But in the end, there's not a global cult, with the exception of Russia. There's a global cult. And if you go deep in the reveal, which is out on September the 1st, one of the things I go into there at one point is how Russian policy, whether it's COVID or whether it's AI and the technological transformation of society, the Russian policy is driving in exactly the same direction. You have to be one step back with all of these people and make a decision based on what they say in the moment, not saying they're good no matter what they do or say. He's a good guy, he's a bad guy. No, listen to each statement and see if it makes sense, because one of the great ways, and we're seeing this, with Musk and these other people that I talk about, whereby they're telling you what you want to hear, but their agenda is very different to what people think their agenda is from what they're saying.
Yep.
So, we had a thing with Musk this week I saw, where he's saying that there's a digital copy being created of the Earth, and it's all about manipulating human consciousness. The point being that we're already in a simulation. That's a simulation within a simulation he's talking about, and he's saying that what's happening is that people's minds are being affected and manipulated by what's coming off the towers, right? So on that level, you'd say, oh yeah, it's all good. What he doesn't mention is he's putting thousands, tens of thousands of low orbit satellites up to beam the same stuff.
Yeah.
So he could, this is why it's so important that you take every statement on its merits, whether it's Orban or anybody, and not get caught in good guy, bad guy, because you'll get scammed most of the time if you do.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've spoken in the past, haven't we, about the kind of illusion of leaders and how they're perceived, and how in the West, in the last decade in particular, there's been this promotion of quite weak, feeble people like Trudeau, Macron, Sunak, obviously Biden, which we're going to dive into in this story, versus the West. You've got that traditional strongman kind of image of Putin, of Xi, of Orban, you could chuck into that, the North Korean guy as well, where their public image is this sort of strong person. I remember when Biden was running the first time, and you were saying about putting somebody who's clearly cognitively not there in the White House, and that was 4 years ago, would do something to the American psyche in terms of how they were viewed as a laughingstock, and they are being. Seen it again with NATO. So what this story is to do with here is how Starmer dodges questions about Biden's age at the NATO Summit after the two fumbling performances. What do you think is the thing here? Do you think this is that extended, or?
Well, I think a couple of things. First of all, his contradiction, blatant contradiction in the same few days, Starmer, shows that this man is a completely empty vessel who will say what he thinks suits him and his masters in whatever moment he's speaking. So what's happened is that Labour have indicated that they would want to have members of the House of Lords, which are appointed, not elected, a bit like Starmer really, that they would have to retire at 80. So he was asked the obvious question, because Biden, senile Biden, is 81.
Yeah.
What do you think about this then? Because he's 81 and you say retire. Oh, no, he's quite all right. We're talking about the President of the United States, not a member of the House of Lords. So this guy is completely vacuous, and he'll say whatever he needs to say, he thinks in the moment. But in terms of weak and strong leaders, you make a very good observation. If you look at through COVID, I was pointing it out all the way through COVID, the weak, useless, vacuous people that were in power, whether it's Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand, the Australian leader, you had, like you say, Trudeau and Johnson and Macron and all these people. And it is an indicator of the general movement and direction that the West is going. It's being diluted. It's being dismantled. They don't want strong leaders. They want weak leaders. Yep. Weak leaders in the sense that they will do as they're told from the people in the shadows, but arrogantly weak in the sense that they won't bow to any public pressure. I mean, people like the weaker than weak Rishi Sunak, he would bow to pressure because he doesn't know where he's coming from. He's like a little boy in short trousers. But someone like Starmer, if you look at him, he is weak in the sense that he does what these masters tell him. But he's also publicly, outwardly arrogant in the sense that I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and you're not going to have anything. You're not going to get in the way of it. And the speed in which he has done so many things in just a few days, just a week, shows you what's coming in terms of dramatic change in Britain.
Well, you spoke about it before the election that Starmer was going to be what the Tories have been doing on steroids, and it's proving that so far
already.
Absolutely. Right. Thank you, everybody. If you're watching with us on davidicke.com or X, that's it for the free version. To hear the rest of the show, where we're going to dive into a lot more of this week's news, head over to Ickonic.com now.